A day before my stepson's wedding, I said, "Can't wait to see you say I do," but then it smelled like rosemary and laundry detergent. The good kind, the kind that smells like sun-warmed cotton and clean, not that artificial lemon-scented chemical smell. I'd lit one of the rosemary candles Mia bought in bulk for the wedding tables, just to test it, to make sure it didn't overpower the food. I was in the kitchen folding linen napkins into those little cathedral shapes Jenny had found on Pinterest. She's my sister, not that it matters. Everyone thinks she's Jason's mother because she looks like someone who'd know what she's doing in a wedding, blonde, symmetrical, loud, in a charming way. I look like the person behind the scenes, the fixer, the one who knows what size tablecloth fits a 72-inch round and how many chairs to rent per person. Jason asked me to help with the wedding about 6 months ago, and I said yes before he could even finish the sentence. I'd been waiting for a question like that for years. Not because I love weddings, I actually kind of hate them. Too loud, too performative, too many emotions everyone pretends they aren't having, but because it meant something, it meant he saw me, he wanted me close. He used to call me Mom too when he was a kid. Started around the time he was 9, maybe 10. It was a joke at first, a thing he said because he didn't know what else to call me. His real mom, Dana, left when he was 8, disappeared in that slow, tragic way that addicts do, more gone each week, even when they're technically still there. She wasn't cruel, just absent. She'd come back for a few weeks clean and then vanish again into whatever place people go when they can't stand to live in their own skin. I met Jason's dad, Mark, around the time Dana was fatting for good. We weren't even supposed to be serious, but then Mark got cancer and everything shifted. I stayed, I didn't mean to, it just happened, like moss growing around a wound. Quiet, slow, but permanent. When Mark died, Jason was 14, a difficult age even if your life is perfect. His wasn't. He had no one left but me. So I stayed, of course I stayed. People always say that like it's noble, like of course is synonymous with heroic. But I didn't stay because I'm a saint. I stayed because I loved him, and because the thought of him being alone made me feel like I was looking down the barrel of a gun. Because I'd already lost too many people and I couldn't lose this boy too, not him, not when he still had that ridiculous cowlick and slept with a light on. Anyway, that was years ago. He's 27 now. He has a real job, an apartment, a dog named Bernie, and Mia, who I genuinely like. She's quiet in a thoughtful way, like she listens twice before speaking. They're good together, stable, like roots that go deep instead of wide. So when Jason asked me to help with the wedding, it felt like a confirmation that I mattered, that he remembered, that all those late-night ER visits and school forms and panic attacks over lost backpacks hadn't just disappeared into the ether like old receipts, that I was something more than a placeholder. I was standing over the kitchen island, smoothing out a stubborn crease in the last napkin when Jason came in behind me. He wrapped an arm around my shoulders, that half hug he always does, and kissed the top of my head. "You're a lifesaver," he said. "Can't wait to see you say I do," I said, smiling, even though something about the light in the room felt off. Too gold, maybe, too quiet, I don't know. I remember thinking, this is it, this is the moment everything feels okay. I should have known better. Later that night, after dinner, Mia asked if we could talk. She was fidgety. Her fingers kept twisting the chain around her neck, and she wouldn't look at me directly. I was washing a wine glass, the fancy kind she registered for, and the sound of the water seemed suddenly too loud. The air felt thick, like a storm was caught inside the walls. "I wanted to tell you something before tomorrow," she said. I nodded. "What's up?" She hesitated, that kind of hesitation people use when they're about to say something they know will hurt. I braced myself. They're eloping, she's pregnant, the caterer backed out, something solvable. Jason wants his mom to walk him down the aisle. I turned slowly, still holding the wine glass. His mom. "She's flying in tomorrow morning. He didn't want to upset you." I didn't respond right away. My body just froze. The sound of the faucet kept running. The glass in my hand felt suddenly fragile, like it might shatter if I moved too fast. But she hasn't seen him in 15 years, I said. The words came out flat, too measured, like someone reading lines from a script. I know, Mia said. She looked nervous, like I might throw the glass or scream. I didn't. I turned off the faucet. He's been reconnecting, she said quietly. For the last few months, just phone calls, nothing huge. He didn't want to, I don't know, open old wounds. I wanted to say something biting, something sharp enough to bleed, so he reopened mine instead. But I just nodded. Nodding is what women like me do. We nod, we fold napkins, we buy the candles, we smile through the pain and never ask for more than we're given. We love quietly, the kind of love that doesn't get named in speeches or remembered in toasts. The kind of love that makes sure the parking signs are clear and the gluten-free guests get a second option. I walked upstairs after that, didn't slam the door, just closed it. Sat on the edge of the guest bed, the one with the quilt I made during lockdown, each square stitched with more care than sense. I stared at the closet door and tried to swallow the bitter, rising tide in my chest. It wasn't that he wanted her there. I could almost understand that. She's his mother. Blood is sticky even when it dries. No, what hurt was that he didn't tell me, that he hid it. Like I was the one who couldn't be trusted with his truth, like I was the one who'd make a scene. I thought about that year he broke his arm, 8 years old, climbing trees too high, too fast. I sat with him all night in the hospital, holding his uninjured hand while he whimpered through the pain. He called me Mom for the first time that night, then corrected himself. Mom too, he whispered, eyes half closed, but you're better. I shouldn't remember that, but I do. I remember it all. Every packed lunch, every parent-teacher conference, every night I stayed up late editing his essays. Every time he called me because he couldn't find the right size blazer. Every laugh, every insult, every silence. And now this. I didn't cry, not then. Instead, I walked down the stairs, past the candle-lit table and the leftover dishes, told Mia I needed to run out for something, and got in my car. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I wasn't coming back. Not tonight. Maybe not tomorrow. Something inside me had broken open, quietly, invisibly, like a dam cracking beneath the surface. And I couldn't hold it back anymore. I drove until the sky turned black and the street signs stopped meaning anything. Past neighborhoods I used to know, strip malls I never cared about, old diners lit with tired neon. I wasn't really looking at anything, just moving. The kind of movement that pretends to be a choice but is really just escape in a borrowed skin. The hum of the tires on the road was the only thing keeping me from screaming. I ended up in a motel somewhere off Route 32. Not the worst one, not the best either. One of those liminal spaces built for people in between things, business trips, affairs, fleeing something in the middle of the night. It smelled like damp carpet and artificial lemon, the kind of clean that tries too hard and doesn't convince anyone. The man at the front desk didn't ask why I was alone. He didn't care. I appreciated that. Room 217. Rust-colored curtains, a bedspread that had seen too many stories. I dropped my purse on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed like my bones didn't know how to support me anymore. My phone buzzed, once, twice. Jason, then Mia, Jenny. I didn't answer. I didn't know what I'd say. Hey, just popping out for a guilt spiral. Be back after I dismantle my entire sense of worth. Instead, I turned off all the lights except the one by the bed, opened the mini bar wine with a ballpoint pen and drank it too fast. It tasted like vinegar and shame. Then I lay back and stared at the ceiling, wondering if maybe this is what Dana felt like all those years ago. Too far gone, not in the way of drugs or alcohol, but in the deeper, hollower sense of being obsolete, replaced. Like the role you played is over, the curtains dropped, and now you're just waiting for someone to tell you to leave the stage. The next morning, I didn't go to the wedding. I could have. I thought about it. I imagined walking in, chin high, acting like I wasn't completely gutted, smiling through clenched teeth while Dana took my place like a bad twist in a soap opera. But in the end, I didn't want to be scenery in someone else's redemption arc. I stayed in bed until 10. Then I walked across the street to a diner called Sonny's, where the eggs came swimming in oil and the waitress called me hun like we'd known each other in another life. I ate in silence, watching an old man scrape toast crumbs into his coffee. I imagined what they were doing at that exact moment. Jason adjusting his tie, Mia practicing her vows, Dana smoothing her dress, pretending she hadn't vanished for a decade and a half. I kept waiting for the grief to feel poetic, cinematic, but it didn't. It just felt pathetic. I felt like someone sitting on the wrong side of the glass, watching her life through fog. After breakfast, I drove to a small lake I used to visit when I first moved in with Mark. It was where we went on the one vacation we ever took, the three of us. Jason had been 10. He caught a fish and cried when it bled on his fingers. I told him pain doesn't mean something isn't beautiful. I remember him looking at me like I was the only person who made sense in the whole wide world. Now I sat alone on a warped picnic bench, hands stuffed in the sleeves of my cardigan, the wind picking up tiny flecks of sand that stung my cheeks. I watched a couple feed geese by the water. Their kid, maybe 4, kept squealing every time a goose got close. The mom laughed. The dad took a photo. I used to want that. I used to believe I had it in a way, a makeshift version. Patchworked but real, Jason and me, our own lopsided family. But now I wasn't so sure. What's a mother really? Is it the person who gave birth to you, or the one who stayed up late sewing the hole in your soccer jersey the night before the championship game? Is it the person you look like, or the one who learned how to braid your hair from a YouTube tutorial because you were too embarrassed to ask at school? I wanted to be noble. I wanted to say none of it mattered, that love is enough. That being there counts more than biology. But love isn't a guarantee, it's a gamble. You give, and maybe, just maybe, it matters to someone, or maybe it's just invisible. A background hum, a thing taken for granted until it's not needed anymore. I spent the rest of the day doing nothing, reading a book I wasn't absorbing, watching birds I couldn't name, ignoring the ache that bloomed every time I thought of him in a tux, smiling at a woman who abandoned him and calling it healing. The next morning, I checked out of the motel. The clerk asked if I wanted a receipt. I shook my head. Some things I didn't need proof of. I didn't go home, not yet. I drove instead to a small park on the outskirts of the city. A place with rusting swings and cracked pavement, but enough trees to trick you into thinking it was peaceful. I sat on a bench and watched a boy and girl kick a soccer ball back and forth. It rolled too far and the girl chased it, tripping, falling, crying. Her dad rushed over, scooped her up, wiped the dirt from her knees, and kissed the top of her head like that made everything okay. It doesn't, but kids still believe it does. Maybe that's the difference. I closed my eyes and let the wind move through me. I didn't know what came next. I didn't even know who I was exactly. A stepmother, a placeholder, a footnote in someone else's origin story. All I knew was that I had loved a boy who needed love, and I had given everything I knew how to give, and now he didn't need me anymore. And I didn't know how to be okay with that. But I also didn't know how to go back to who I was before him. So I sat there somewhere between those two ghosts and let the quiet hold me, let the questions go unanswered. Let myself exist for once without trying to prove anything. I didn't plan to go. I told myself I was done, that I'd closed the book, boxed up the memories, lit the match, that I could start over somewhere quieter, somewhere where my absence wouldn't echo so loud. But grief has a cruel gravity to it. It pulls you back to the places where your heart last beat fully, even if those places are sharp and unkind now, even if you know better. It was about a week after the wedding. A Thursday. I hadn't slept well in days, every dream full of half-seen faces and unfinished conversations. I kept replaying that moment in the kitchen, Mia's voice like a blade wrapped in silk, Jason's name on my phone screen like a ghost knocking. I sat on my porch with coffee gone cold, the sky dull and overcast, the kind that makes everything look bleached of meaning. And something in me, quiet and stubborn, whispered, "You don't get to disappear just because you're hurt, not if it was real." So I drove back, parked outside their apartment, which looked too new, too full of fresh starts. I sat in the car for 10 minutes, watching my own fingers tremble on the steering wheel, asking myself what the hell I was hopping to accomplish. Closure. No, that's a myth. What I wanted, what I couldn't admit even to myself, was something rawer, messier. I wanted him to look me in the eye. I wanted him to say, "I'm sorry." I wanted to hear that I hadn't made it all up, that the years I gave hadn't dissolved like sugar in water the moment she reappeared. Mia answered the door. She looked surprised but not shocked, like she'd been bracing for me to eventually show up. "Hi," she said, and stepped aside without asking questions. Jason was sitting on the couch in sweatpants, barefoot, phone in hand, eyes dark-rimmed. He looked up and froze, not angry, not guilty, just unsure. "Can we talk?" I asked. He nodded, motioned for me to sit, but I stayed standing. I didn't trust my body to hold anything if I got too comfortable. "I'm not here to make a scene," I said. My voice sounded thin, like it had been squeezed through too many tight places. "I just need to ask you something." He nodded again, slow, waiting. "Why didn't you tell me about her?" He opened his mouth, closed it again, looked down at the floor. "Because I didn't want to hurt you." I let out a breath, half laugh, half exhale. "That's the problem, Jason. You keep confusing silence with kindness." He looked up then, eyes full of something I didn't want to name. "I didn't know how to say it," he admitted. "It wasn't about choosing her over you." "But that's what it felt like," I said. "You asked me to help plan your wedding. I thought I was part of your life, that I mattered." "You do. Then why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth?" He didn't answer right away, just rubbed the back of his neck like he was trying to massage the guilt out. I hated how familiar that gesture was, how I'd seen him do it after every bad grade, every lost job, every time life got too big. "I didn't know what I wanted," he said finally. "She called me last year out of nowhere. I didn't even pick up at first, but then I got curious. I wanted to know if she was different." "Was she?" He shrugged. "She's trying. I don't know if that means anything, but yeah, she's different." "And that's enough to forget everything." My voice cracked on the last word. "No," he said quickly. "God, no, Nora, I haven't forgotten anything." "Then why did you let her walk you down the aisles?" He looked me in the eye. "Because she wasn't there for any of it. Not the scraped knees, not the nightmares, not the goddamn spelling bees. She missed it all, but she asked. And for once, she showed up." I nodded slowly, and I didn't need to be asked. I just show up, right? He stood then, walked toward me. "I didn't mean it like that." "But it is like that," I said. "That's what hurts the most. I was so busy proving I was reliable, I forgot to prove I had feelings too." Jason looked like he was going to cry, and I hated it. Hated that I still wanted to wipe his face and hold him and tell him it was okay, even as I stood in the wreckage of us. "I'm sorry," he said. "I really am. I didn't handle any of it right. I thought you were strong. I thought you didn't need anything from me." "I didn't want to need anything," I whispered. "But I did. I do. I needed to know I wasn't just the scaffolding while you rebuilt your life." "You weren't," he said. "You were the foundation." There it was. The sentence that cracked something in me again. Not because it fixed anything, not because it made it okay, but because I believed it. Because deep down, I think he believed it too. "I'm not trying to erase you," he said. "I'm just figuring out who I am, and sometimes that means looking at the parts I tried to forget." I get that, I said, finally sitting down. My knees felt like glass. Just next time, don't forget to look at the parts that held you together too. We sat in silence for a while after that, not comfortable but not hostile, just two people standing in the debris of something they both helped build. He offered me tea. I said no. I didn't stay long. Didn't cry until I got back to the car. But when I did, it was different, not the gasping, choking sobs of the motel. This time it was quiet, clean, a grief that had been named, faced, and set down, at least for a while. I didn't know what we were now, but I knew what we were. And maybe that was enough. It's funny, the things you think you'll remember, the big scenes, the drama, the words said in doorways and under chandeliers, and then it's the small things that stay. Like the sound of tea cooling beside you in a cup you forgot to drink, the hush of a house at 2:00 a.m. when no one is calling anymore, the way a porch creaks beneath your feet like it's glad you're still here. I moved away 3 months after the wedding, not far, just enough. A town where no one knew my history, where the grocery store felt anonymous and the air didn't carry echoes. I found a small place near the coast, the kind of house that looks like it has a soul, soft blue paint peeling at the corners, windows that let the light pour in sideways like it's remembering something. Packing was surreal. Each object felt heavier than it should have. I didn't bring everything, just the pieces that felt like they were mine. A few cast iron pans, the quilt I made during lockdown, my garden shears, the books with my scribbled notes in the margins. The rest I left behind, or donated, or just let go of. Jason came by the night before the move. Alone, Mia was at work. He brought a bottle of wine and 2 gas station cupcakes with blue frosting. We didn't talk about the wedding. We didn't talk about Dana. We didn't talk about what broke. We just sat on the floor, backs against the half-empty bookshelf, and drank cheap red wine out of chipped mugs. You ever think about that vacation we took to the lake? He asked around midnight. I nodded. You cried when you caught that fish. He laughed. I felt bad, but you said the thing about beauty and pain. I never forgot that. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. When he left, he hugged me longer than usual, like something had landed in him, or maybe between us. Don't disappear, he said. I smiled. Don't erase me. It wasn't a promise, but it was something close. The first few weeks in the new place were both blissful and unbearable. No responsibilities, no expectations. I could walk barefoot into the kitchen at noon, make eggs with too much butter, and play Nina Simone on the radio loud enough that the walls vibrated. But the silence was also a mirror. It showed me who I was without him, without the role, the caretaking, the long shadow of needing to be needed. And I didn't always like what I saw. I felt blurry, like someone left out in the rain too long. I started volunteering at a thrift store down the street, not out of passion really, just because I needed to be around the rhythm of other lives. The women there were kind but not nosy. They taught me how to price vintage Pyrex and let me rearrange the display window once a week. That kind of small control, it was enough to feel like I was rebuilding something. I also started painting again. I'm not good at it, my brushstrokes are clumsy and I still don't understand light. But it's not about being good, it's about staying present, about seeing what's in front of me instead of what I've lost. My first painting was of the view outside my new bedroom window, a crooked pine tree, 2 power lines, a sliver of ocean. I titled it Things That Stay and taped it to the fridge like a child. Jason calls sometimes, less than he used to, but more than I expected. We don't talk about the hard stuff often. Sometimes it's just a photo of Bernie asleep with a sock in his mouth. Sometimes it's a recipe he's trying, asking me if a pinch means what he thinks it means. I don't push, I don't expect. But the last time he called, it was different. Hey, he said, Mia's pregnant. The world tilted a little, but not in the way I feared, not in a shattering way. It felt like someone lit a candle inside a long-closed room. I'm happy for you, I said, and I meant it. He was quiet for a second, then, would you come visit soon? I want you to see the place, the nursery. My chest got tight in that soft, aching way. I'd love that. And I will go, not to reclaim anything, not to reassert a title, but because I am still part of his story, quietly, humbly, differently. I know now that love doesn't always get recognized the way it deserves. Sometimes it's unthanked, unremembered. Sometimes it's replaced, but it's never wasted. It lives in muscle memory, in instinct, in the way a grown man still calls when he doesn't know how long to boil pasta. I walk the beach most mornings now. The ocean always sounds like breath to me, steady, tidal, forgiving. It never asks you to be anything more than present. It just wants you to keep showing up. So that's what I do. I show up. For myself, for the version of love that doesn't need applause, for the future that isn't clean or easy but still mine to shape. The past is still in me, like marrow, like music you can't quite forget, but it doesn't weigh the same anymore. It's quieter now. And I'm learning to live inside that quiet, not as a punishment, but as a kind of grace. The kind that rebuilds, softly, honestly, one breath at a time.